Well, it's a beautiful Wednesday morning, the 13th of May, 2026. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey Ozoma. We hope you're having a beautiful time. 13th is already almost half of the way into the brand new month. I don't know what's going on with 2026. It looks like 2026 is in a hurry to meet 2027, but we're here to make sure we help you make sense of what is playing out around the country. Bukola, what are you tracking?
Well, quite a lot. The Africa-France Summit, or if you like, the Africa Forward Summit that is ongoing in Kenya. President Bola Tinubu joined other African leaders yesterday, and we understand about 30 African leaders, are participating in that summit. Of course, we weighed in on the big talking points yesterday, and particularly on lessons that we can glean from the past experience of Franco-Africa relations. But there seemed to be a lot to look forward to from what's already playing out in Kenya. We heard, President William Ruto speaking yesterday when he addressed the participants at the opening ceremony of the summit. And, Jeffrey, he seemed to touch on some of our reflections yesterday when he said the bias in global credit ratings is affecting Africa, and the consensus is that Africa must begin to fund Africa, that our infrastructure must not, suffer as a result of, the imbalance in global credit ratings. But Jeffrey, really, is that part of the is that the only part of the narrative, that is shaping African deficit in funding? What about legislations that we can look at and see whether indeed, our governments are taking advantage of legislations to control their own natural resources? What about, budgeting, the transparent level of budgeting that we see, borrowing from the Nigerian example, the right amount of funding going to the areas that they should go to: defense, education, the health sector. Every year budget comes through, with its report on the state of states, and we see every year how what is budgeted for is not totally expended, and sometimes it's not returned to the coffers of the nation. We see, for instance, the report that has come through, put through by the print media, how priority is given to items like, travels, of the presidency, but an area as critical as defense, budgeting for the entire year is not released. We've heard, of a minister, talk about how what was released for a capital component of the budget in 2025 was a mere 35 million. But because that's part of the conversation that we should weigh in on. The accountability component of our budgeting systems is also critical. We've talked time and again, about how legislation has been done to allow states intervene in the area of power. How much creativity and outcomes are we seeing in those areas? And so when, we blame the bias in global credit ratings, of course, we see that African countries, have to pay sometimes more in percentage in interest rate than other countries that go to the Bretton Woods institution for borrowing. But Africa is not stepping up to its game as much as it should. We might have to look at the books of other African countries, but from our own Nigerian experience, it appears as if there is more, that is required in terms of prudence, in terms of accountability, in terms of transparency for its own, financial expenditure. The other day, Jeffrey, we were talking about how it appears as if there is more funding now from state funds that is now going to campaigns ahead of 2027, and those critical funds should have gone to areas like health, areas like education. For instance, we have a whopping 18.5 million out of school children. That is part of the conversation.
Well said, Bukola. Leadership at the core is what you're talking about. Leadership from outside in. This in our leadership, we practice a brand of democracy that is quite funny. So there are multi-layers to this thing. So let's talk about the numbers. For instance, Africa total debts, from the estimation I have, is maybe between $700 billion to maybe $1 trillion. Our GDP as an entirety of our continent, as Africa, is about maybe 2.7, let's just put it at $3 trillion. So if you do the maths, we're talking about somewhere around the range of maybe less than 30% or thereabouts. So let's estimate it at 30%. So if you do the debt to GDP ratio, it may not be alarming, but how it affects all of us. Now that's just mathematics. How it affects one country different from how it affects the other country. And how do we borrow generally? Government, there are different ways. There is the fixed income debt security that people get, whether it's treasury bills or euro bonds or local bonds, and then there's the multilateral borrowing, and then the from the IMS of this world, the World Bank. Then you have the bilateral borrowings from nations like the one we have in the UK recently when the president visited. Then you can have this fixed, there's a mixture of all of them tied to project. And then the last resort at the end of the day has to be ways and means, which has been managed a lot better under this administration. I think in Section 38 of the CBN Act says that, I don't know whether it was increased later, but 5% of your total revenue of the previous year is what the CBN can give to you, and you must pay back within that fiscal year. So looking at how borrowings come through, you can see that whenever we borrow in dollar-denominated currency or in dollar terms, the interest is super high because of our credit rating. Maybe 9%, sometimes 12%, sometimes 15%, and all of the yield curve and how it affects this. So part of the conversation that should be happening is beyond investment in Africa, which is what I like. The conversation is no longer about aid, it should be about investment. It's the fact that this debt, is there a way to see how maybe some relief can be given or cancellation of some of this debt so that that burden is taken off? Because what happens is your rating is based most of the time based on your ability to be able to pay back the money you borrow or service the debt so that you don't default like some African countries. And then we can talk about the practice of leadership. Our brand of democracy is very worrying. Yoweri Museveni was sworn in for a 7th term just a few days ago. He's been a president since 1986. Neighboring Cameroon, 92-year-old Paul Biya has been there. People that are my age, I think I've only seen Paul Biya, maybe some other person, as their president since God knows when, the 80s, and he's going to be there till almost his 100 years, when he's 100 years old. We can go to Equatorial Guinea. We can go to all of these places. So when it comes to leadership, Africa itself is not showing that it has walked away from monarchical system to real democracy where people are allowed to express themselves. So if you probe some of these African countries in terms of how they practice democracy, it's nothing close to democracy. It's monarchic packaged in the form of democracy. And then sometimes families that run this country. Then we can talk about insecurity, conflict across the continent. I agree with President Ruto of Kenya, who said African Union, for instance, looks like it has outlived its purpose because it can't really bite, can't really do much. We're here, and then the Sahel region, they left. And then people were celebrating a takeover of a military administration. Who likes a military administration? But when the civilian leadership has failed the people significantly, anything alternative becomes a preferable option for them. So we can go about leadership, we can talk about management of resources, real resources, financial management of these countries, from Nigeria to Egypt. That doesn't mean we don't have bright spots within all of this. There are bright spots. Nigeria is trying, but we're not there. But when you talk about real bright spots, you talk about Rwanda, for instance, which has really done quite well when it comes to leadership. Even right now, some of us are advising Paul Kagame, it's time to exit. Before you become the villain. You've been celebrated. So there's something about Africa that we need to sit down and look inwards first, so that the way you dress is, they say, is the way you will be addressed. China is not going about trying to window dress anything. They stayed in China, built China, and now China is everybody's destination. So every country that has done it, they sat down and built itself, because Africa itself is not like Europe that comes out with Nigeria, for instance, over 400 or is it 300 or 400 ethnic nationalities. So you can imagine how many ethnic nationalities we have across the country. Unity is still a problem. To travel within Africa is still a problem. I want to go to South Africa. I want to go to Southern Africa. I need a visa. I was super embarrassed when the richest black man in the world, Aliko Dangote, at a forum was saying to the people there,
it's more expensive to do business within Africa.
He was saying that, I think one of the CEOs of the IOCs, it's easier for that gentleman to travel around Africa than for him, as the richest man in Africa, to travel around Africa. He said he needs about 30-something visa. Who should be talking about visa with people like Aliko Dangote? So that is where we are. Well,
if the solutions, that
we need to start solving our problem.
To solve its problem is within Africa, then we must reflect on all those, inhibitions to economic integration.
Absolutely.
First of all, the wealth may be here. And you were saying, Jeffrey, that, Nigeria is trying, but we can do better. Let's double down on how Nigeria is trying. Perhaps Nigeria is trying in the area of retaining the wealth in the hands of the elite. The redistribution of economic wealth to get right down to the grassroots is where Nigeria is lagging seriously behind.
And that is antithetical to Section 16 of the Constitution, which talks about objective of state policy. If you look at that Section 16, which I would advise every Nigerian to go and look at, it shows you that Nigeria is more of a welfarist than neoliberal capitalist nation, in a sense, by legislation. Not that it discourages...
for adding that right by legislation.
not that it discourages capitalism, because capitalism drives enterprise. It also brings competition, can drive down costs. But the law says that if for any reason monies or wealth is in the hands of a group of persons or a group of maybe ethnic nationalities or maybe a segment, you use fiscal policy to redistribute that wealth. So that's why we have the non-income, multi-dimensional poverty in the region of over 100 million people.
Absolutely.
We can go on and on and on, all of these things. But that's why we are waiting. I, as a journalist, I'm sure you as a journalist, you're waiting for May the 30th so that all of the political noise will sieve away. And we now have candidates, and we can now, because I have my questions ready for President Tinubu, for whoever is coming out in every other political party. I know exactly what to ask each of them on what they will do differently, because we're tired of the status quo. And if you don't have an alternative that is more of a better logic than what President Tinubu is doing, then you leave the man to continue. Else, you kick him out. It's as simple as that. But we'll take a break, Bukola.
Oh, we're supposed to talk about something that also is just as important as what's ongoing in Kenya, and it is the decision by the federal government through the Ministry of Education to implement the dual mandate policy, for colleges of education, such that they can now award both the NCE and the Bachelor of a bachelor's degree in colleges of education. And that's exciting, Jeffrey, because apart from solving the administrative problem in colleges of education, it would also encourage, NCE holders to kill two birds with one stone. Yes, instead of, the stress, the burden of having to pursue, another degree after exiting the college of education, but to, achieve that goal within that institution. And that will also go a long way to, in one educational experience, boost the qualification of Nigerian teachers, and that's exciting. And another thing that the minister said yesterday during that conversation on our sister political program is that once the ministry began implementing the no requirement for mathematics for science students, for art students, and no requirement for English for science students, that the higher institutions began to witness an increase in enrollment of students, degree pursuers in relevant courses in the sciences and in the arts. So what some may see as policy inconsistency in the Ministry of Education may actually be yielding results, and that goes to also help understand better the decision of the administration to eliminate the UTME requirement for NCE pursuers, those who are pursuing College of Education degree certificate. And we also require clarity, Jeffrey, on the validity of that for many Nigerian students. Very difficult examination, JAM examination. Once you get that out of the way, you have really scaled through one educational experience. So eliminating that also goes a long way to ease the burden of those who are pursuing a degree in colleges of education to get one hurdle out of the way and then continue the pursuit. And so that goes a long way to improve enrollment outcomes.
Well said. If it has to do with policy tweaks under this administration, especially under Tunji Laws as Minister of Education, he's really moving a lot of needles, to make sure. I'm seeing a lot of activity. I'm sure we're going to bring him. It was on our show yesterday on Politics Today, so you can go and watch the interview as well. But let's take a break. I'm bringing our guest, Igor Akerega, is a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors to help us look at the papers. Just a moment. Stay with us. Akerega Igor, he is joining us from Abuja studios. He is the member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. Mr. Akerega, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, good morning, Geoffrey and Bukola. I mean, it's a pleasure this morning to be here.
A pleasure to see you too. So, there's a lot we would allow you binge through for us. Let's begin with politics. And the APC is leading on this one when it comes to how the Vanguard is relaying their stories. APC knockout, this is from the Vanguard newspaper. APC knockout day. They say today is APC knockout day. 30 governors, 88 senators, 242 reps, 2,620 others no fate today. The Riders Party to release screening report today. Yawada reads Riot Act to aspirants. I'm ready to face any aspirant beat Abiodun in primaries. That's according to Benga Daniel. Ogun East APC endorses Abiodun for Senate. Mr. Akerega.
Well, these are interesting times. I'm sure for anyone that is following the politics, you will understand that this time will come. Now we are here. For me, I've said in the past that the APC is the ruling party. It's about the biggest political party in Africa at the moment. It is a beautiful bride. Everybody's there. Over 34 governors, sitting governors, and the APC currently with the party also dominating the Senate and the House of Reps in terms of representation. But that is how far it goes. Now, you will also understand that to whom much is given, much is expected. Everybody has converged in the APC now. I have said it in the past that there could be an implosion within the party, particularly with the policy of consensus. So if you take it from there, there are a lot of the aspirants on the platform of the APC are saying that they are not happy with the consensus arrangement. They are willing to go for a direct primary. The INEC laws provide for recognizes consensus or direct primary. So whichever one that goes is acceptable to INEC. But as it is, where I see the problem coming from the APC now is this consensus arrangement, where the party's governors in the states appears to have been given sweeping powers to ensure that the process is going smoothly. If you, like as you rightly pointed out, in Osun State, former Governor Benga Daniel is squaring it up with Dr. Abiodun, the city governor, for the Senate seat in Ogun East Senatorial District. That promises to be an interesting story, and I'm sure the papers on top of it, they are following it up. Benga Daniel is poised. He has said he's not going to cede his position because already he's in the Senate, he's a sitting senator, and the governor has been endorsed by APC leaders in Ogun East Senatorial District, where both of them comes from. So that is going to be, a contest of huge interest to anyone that is following the development. Now, if you go to Imo State, it's interesting there. Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State wants to be a senator. So he is, and of course, his term expires, I think, in January 2028 because of the off-cycle election. Remember, he was sworn in as governor after the court declared him winner. So that pushes Imo State into the off-cycle election bracket. He still has about 7 months or thereabout, to complete his term. By the time the entire process is completed, but if he does win the senatorial ticket, then he will be holding 2 positions. So that I think I read a report this morning saying that some stakeholders within the party in Imo State are not happy. Currently, Opuzodinma is the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, is the chairman of the Renewed Hope Ambassadors that is leading the charge for President Bola Tinubu's re-election campaign. And of course, so he's a prominent member of the ruling All Progressives Congress. It's going to be very interesting in Imo State what happens there. The deputy speaker of the House of Reps, Benjamin Kalu is running for the governorship ticket in Abia State. He's going to square it up with Governor Oti in that state. So it's an entire package that is going to be of interest to Nigerians that are following the political development. Now, by the end of today, the APC will be publishing the names of successful aspirants, for the different positions. Ranging from, of course, there's this gentleman from Edo State. I think he's the only candidate that has offered to challenge President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for the presidential ticket on the platform of the APC. So today he will know whether he has sailed through or not. And of course, you have over 88 senators and more than 200 House of Reps aspirants. And so generally, we are looking at close to 2,400 aspirants on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, who will know their fate today. It is interesting, as I said earlier, and so we wait with bated breath to see how all of it plays out. But I must also add that once the APC publishes the list of successful aspirants today, we are likely going to be confronted with aggrieved party members who will consider other options. And the chairman of the national chairman of the APC has already threatened, that is Iwada Nentawe has threatened that he will invoke strong disciplinary measures against any party members who does not fall in line. But at the end of today, we'll wait and see how all that plays out, how the APC is able to manage this contradicting interest, this conflicting interest within the party. So as I said, these are interesting times for the ruling party.
And Oyo is on my mind now, if you consider the Caliban standings of those who have entered the race for governorship. So it's not just Ogun senatorial that seems to be challenged, but there's also Oyo, and you could look at, other elective positions also. But let's head to the New Telegraph now, which takes a detour from politics in its lead story. This is an interesting one. Amakri, Homeland Security role will create tension within presidency's command control structure. And there are 2 insights here, well, quite a number, not just 2, 3. Foresees high duplication risk. Tinubu overwhelmed by insecurity, that's ascribed to the former vice president, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. And then there's this one, the term homeland meaningless in Nigeria context, that's ascribed to the ADC. This may be coming from the opposition, but regardless, we can't help but ask why Nigeria needs an official managing homeland security where there's the National Security Advisor. Is this a duplication of responsibility, giving the mere difference in nomenclature?
Well, the president has the responsibility to appoint whoever he thinks can help him to succeed in his policy drive. Now, as we approach the 2027 election, you agree with me, as most Nigerians would this morning, that for me, I think 2 critical issues will dominate the elections: economic issues and security issues. The issue of petrol and all that is Nigerians are almost getting used to that now, the fluctuating prices. But the dominant issue is that of the economy of the country that appears to be wobbling and has inflicted more poverty on Nigerians. And of course, the most important of it is security. If you look at it, in the last 2 years, the security issues in Nigeria, in the country, has become quite intense. You know, terrorism is bearing its fangs across the country. It is moving southwards. Initially, when Kogi State was engulfed in insecurity, people say, oh, this issue is getting out of hand. And then we saw it moving southwards to Kwara. In fact, even up to Ekiti State. It is in Edo State. And then Enugu State. So you see that it appears that terrorists are trying to encircle the entire country. If you look at Borno State, that is sharing borders with Chad, Niger, and then of course Adamawa State, Cameroon, where it is also another hotbed of Adamawa Yobe, hotbed of crisis. And then by the time you move down south, Cross River, Enugu, and all of that, sharing borders with Cameroon, with Cameroon, and then on the westward boundary of Nigeria, you see Kwara, Ekiti, part of Osun State, that is sharing border with Benin Republic and all of that. So it appears these criminal elements are trying to encircle the rest of us. So the president, he should be very worried. I'm not surprised that he has appointed the retired Major General as a special advisor on Homeland Security. But what is interesting is the terminology Homeland, which it is a term that is used in the United States and some Western countries. I do not know what drove the president to adopt that name, but as it is, and as I said, he has the responsibility and the prerogative to appoint whoever he wants to appoint and create any portfolio for that for the appointee. I guess most Nigerians this morning will also be interested in the delineation of responsibilities between the Office of National Security Advisor and the Special Advisor on Homeland Security. That is what I think most people will need clarity on, where the clear duties of the general that has been appointed now. But if you look at his profile, I read his profile. He's grounded in intelligence, and I think most of the issues that is confronting us is lack of appropriate intelligence to preempt the strike, to preempt the attacks of these terrorists. So perhaps the president thinks that he will be tapping in the wealth of knowledge of this general to try and preempt these terrorists by gathering sufficient intelligence and stop them in their tracks before they attack. But it will be interesting in the days ahead to see how the Special Advisor on Homeland Security and the National Security Advisor collaborates, to ensure that we all sleep with our two eyes closed. For those that are questioning the president, I do not think that what he has done is out of the woods. We wait and see whatever he needs to do to ensure that he stabilizes the security environment across the country. It should be a welcome development. So we keep our hands crossed and then see how this new appointee will bring his wealth of experience to bear on the security situation that is almost getting out of hands, if it has not already almost spiraled out of control.
And let's hope that the concerns around tension within the presidency and, of course, additional, budgetary implications, would be insignificant compared to the outcomes, especially on intelligence gathering and on reining in on, the indiscriminate killings that we're seeing. Let's hope that those outcomes would trump those concerns of tension and, additional budgetary implications. Let's head now to, I'm spoiled for choice this morning. Since we've explored the matter of security, let's see this one from the Daily Monitor. And, it appears as if it's part of the conversations that we should begin to have with the aspirants as we head into the 2027 elections, the matter of the economy. Nigeria's tax reforms key to economic growth. That's ascribed to the new finance minister, Mr. Oyedele, and there are two riders here, says federal government creating competitive tax environment capable of attracting investment capital, supporting enterprise growth, others. And there's this one as well, countries failing to modernize tax systems risk weakened resilience, inequality, and declining investor confidence. It's been about 5 months since the implementation of the new tax laws. What are your thoughts on the outcomes, or is it too soon to weigh the efficacy of the new tax laws to transform Nigeria's economy?
Well, in my view, the tax laws that took effect from January this year is a welcome development. If you look at developed societies, particularly in the West, Britain particularly, the UK, yes, UK used to thrive on manufacturing, but the post-Second World War era saw the United Kingdom, developing a wave of tax reforms that has sustained that country for the many years that it has been existing. So in Nigeria, people really do not pay enough tax. And I think the reason also is because the government itself has not lived up to responsibility. So when the first set of tax laws, came on stream early this year, throughout last year, there was a whole lot of debate around the issue of whether we need more taxes, and all of that. But we've gone back past that now. It eventually went through the National Assembly. It was passed, and then the president has signed it into law. Now, but what has been the impact on the lives of Nigerians and the economy itself? With what has happened in the Middle East with the Strait of Hormuz, the crisis of international maritime shipping across the Strait of Hormuz, and the war that eventually broke out between the US, Israel, and Iran, and the effect of the crisis on prices of petrol across the world, not only in Nigeria. Already in Nigeria, we are paying about 1,300, between 1,300 and 1,400 for a liter of fuel. That is quite heavy. So if you weigh that against the new tax laws, for example, let us bring it down to what our viewers will understand this morning. If you buy data in your phone, now you find that the data that you buy is no longer giving you the value that you used to have before January this year. Though data now is quickly asphyxiating. If you put in 10 gig of data in your phone, before you know it is gone. The same thing with airtime. Now, bank charges have also risen. For people who are looking at their bank receipts, if you receive money or you send out money, you are charged. And then, of course, the new tax law also talks about the tax net, the reprieve that is given to people that those who earn below, I guess, 1 million naira or so in a month, they enjoy some tax relief. But generally, I have not seen the positive outcome on the lives of Nigerians. Yeah. Where the government is building infrastructures, roads are being built. I read a report a few days ago that the federal government has approved railway to connect Abuja to Warri in Delta State. That's a welcome development. I'm sure many people are waiting for that. If that is done, well, then people will begin to see a direct outcome of some of these policies that the money that government is realizing from these taxes, it is also being ploughed in the right, it's being invested in appropriate places that can benefit most Nigerians. Then again, you look at CNG buses. We are in Abuja here. We can't see the CNG buses. So people are paying through their noses for transportation. The prices of food has skyrocketed. Farmers can't go to the farm. So, and that is affecting the price of food. Yeah. Yes, at some point it stabilized. But if you look at the prices now, it's gradually climbing up again. Maybe because of the crisis in the Middle East. Yeah, as a country, we are very quick at ascribing our problems to any issue, any problem outside our shores. So it is easy to point to the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz as part of our problem. When the national grid collapses, we say, oh, it has collapsed because there was heavy rainfall or wind, as if other countries do not witness rainfall. So as a country, we need to be prepared to deal with unexpected circumstances. So with regards to the tax reforms, I think most Nigerians are still waiting to see how they directly benefit from the new tax regime that the government has put in place. But generally, if you ask me, it is a welcome development.
And you know, that's the biggest part of the story, the outcomes of the tax, reforms. Nigerians want to pay tax, really, but they're asking questions. What is the result of the tax that I have paid? I'd like to see it in roads, in water, in good education. I mean, where water is concerned, everybody takes care of their water needs right now. So where's the tax that has been paid? Mr. Igor Akeria, thank you so much for coming on the Morning Brief newspaper review segment. We look forward to seeing you again. Mr. Igor Akeria is a member of the Guild of Editors of Nigeria. Thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
We'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll begin the first leg of our conversation, which is Rivers politics. So what exactly happened with the screening of the House of Assembly aspirants 2 days ago? We have our correspondent joining us to give us the exact details. So join us again. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's bring in our correspondent, Charles Oporom, joining us from Port Harcourt, the River State capital. Charles, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Buki. Good morning from Port Harcourt.
Yes, the more we want Port Harcourt and River State to be off the news, the more they drag themselves in. It's a lot of drama when it comes to River State. But in just like 2-3 minutes, let's find, because we saw the screening exercise that happened. Some persons were cleared, some persons were not cleared. Of course, the list clearly showed that those that were loyal to the prominent loyalists of Governor Fubara were not cleared. And then others that were loyal to the FCT minister were cleared. And then I think we asked Ikenga that question. He said, well, the screening committee had to do their work. It wasn't particularly targeted at anyone. But what's the latest update?
Okay, so continuing from where Mr. Ikenga stopped at the last conversation you had with him on Monday, yesterday when we interviewed him with regards to the appeals committee. Okay, sorry, just a little bit of, let's take you back a little bit. After the screening committee finished and they released that statement saying, oh, these people have been recommended for clearance, while these other people have been recommended for non-clearance, right? There is an appeals committee. The appeals committee started sitting yesterday at about 10 a.m. It's led by a gentleman called Abdul Mahmood, alongside 2 other people. So they are receiving appeals from the 66 members rather, who were recommended for non-clearance, those who were not cleared, including the likes of the 3 lawmakers who are loyal to the governor. Honorable Timothy from Opobo Nkoro, Honorable Sokari Goodboy from Ahoda West, and of course, Honorable Victor Okujumbu. Now, they came yesterday. They refused to be filmed, so we just managed to steal a few shots. Okay, you rolled one of Sokari Goodboy having a conversation with somebody. And interestingly, the complaints they had, according to the leader, the chairman of that appeals committee, Mr. Abdul Mahmood, was that after the screening exercise, nothing was communicated to them. In fact, I know for a fact that the former or the serving lawmakers, that is the incumbent lawmakers, weren't even asked any questions. I've spoken to 1 or 2 of them, and they said, okay, they presented their documents and they were asked to take a bow and go, because of course they are serving, so they were given that, they are accorded that respect, including Sokari Goodboy himself and Victor Okujumbu. Okay, so he said he was surprised to have seen his name as among those who were not cleared, and nothing was communicated to them. This particular bit of information is very, very important, because the chairman of the appeals committee himself, Mr. Abdul Mahmood, also said yesterday that when he was having a conversation with the appellants, they raised the same question. Every single one of them said, Nothing was told to us. Nothing was said to us. We just saw our names on social media that we weren't cleared. So the appeals process has started. So they look at your documents, look at your appeals process, find out why you weren't cleared. They said they have received the report from the screening committee and that they are studying it while having a conversation with the appellants. There is a gentleman from Andoni, Mr. Gugu. He complained that when he went there, he was told that the reason why he wasn't cleared was that he had not paid annual party dues, I think for this year or last year. I can't remember the year he mentioned again. But then he said, those who vote in congresses, have they paid? Those who went to the National Convention, have they paid? So that he felt it was a flimsy excuse, So some other aspirants had, they had different things to say about that. But coming to the point of those who are believed to be loyal to the FCT minister being screened and cleared, and those believed to be loyal to the governor being not cleared, we asked Mr. Shibiki King that question yesterday, and his response was that, the FCT minister is not a member of the APC, so it is not fair to bring him into an internal affair of the APC. So that was basically his response, basically a denial that the FCT minister was behind the non-clearance of the governor's loyalists. Jeff.
Interesting. We'll continue to keep tab with you on this development. I'm looking at the list of things that were given as reasons for not clearing, including not being financially up to date, inducement, attempted bribery of committee members, submission of unsworn affidavit, failure to present voter card, failure to present party membership slips, conflicting dates of birth, failure to confirm payment of membership dues by nominators, irregular party membership numbers of nominators, inconsistencies in names appearing on submitted document, insufficient nominators with required number which fall short of 3 nominators per ward, invalid affidavit that failed to disclose. Now, I want to believe that this is written in their law, so anybody who is going for screening should have been pre. Just like you're going to write JAM, you already know what is expected in JAM. And as a matter of fact, we'll need to further probe after this entire exercise, Charles, that whether all of these parties disqualifying people, they align with Section 85 of the Electoral Act, which stipulates clearly on the only reasons why you can disqualify anyone. Bukola, do you have any?
Well, I'd just like to know, Charles, what's the mood like, at the government house, if you have any hint, especially since the governor emerged from that screening and, gave his no comment response to pressmen. Is there any indication that, he's engaging in conversations or, rethinking a new line of action, if indeed he was not screened?
Okay, so the best way to gauge these things, on the part of social media where we are, we have the Wikematic people and the simplified people. So when you look at the kind of posts that they make, you see those of them that they call themselves Wikematic people. From the name, you know where they lean already. They're basically celebrating. You see posts like, you had an agreement with us, you want to dribble us like Ronaldo, don't worry, VAR has caught you. Posts like that, basically coming out to gloat, if you like. And then you have posts from simplified people saying, don't worry now, you see, we'll find a way. That VAR that caught us, that VAR is going to, give a decision in our favor. So it's very, very interesting when you see how the banter is going left, right, and center. But as of this moment, the problem with the current administration is there's a lack of sufficient information coming out of the governor's office, out of the if it's not the president, they say the presidency. I don't know if there's a word like the governancy, but coming out of the government house, we don't have a lot of information, and so we are left to speculate. The chief press secretary, we don't have a commissioner for information yet, so they are not speaking to us as they ought to. So that is allowing speculation, to thrive, and in the absence of truth, half truths or lies, speculation would rule the day. So that's the problem we are having here.
Charles, look, Rivers politics is both exciting, intriguing, and volatile all in one breath. Ours is that whatever happens after 2027 should be a bit more peaceful, because I've never seen what has happened in the last 4 or 3 years in any state. 3 attempted impeachment. a House of Assembly of 4 passing a budget of 800 billion naira, House of Assembly of 3 passing even higher amount, a state of emergency. The lawmakers, it's just a literal conundrum. It's exhausting.
In the next couple of days, there's a lawyer here, I think Chetam Wala, he's going to be leading a one-man protest to demand that the governor must go and present the budget. So, because he has not presented it.
Again, I think I even forgot one bit. It was the National Assembly that passed one of the budgets, you remember? And yes, that budget can actually run, by law, if you pass a budget, say for 2026, for instance, or even if you don't have a budget for a new year, you have until, I think, June, that you must present a new budget. I'm just saying that Rivers leadership and politics, it's just a conundrum. But must thank you. We'll keep that with you. And we'll be back.
Thank you.
Let's switch gears from Rivers State, guys. So let's get to Osun State. Bukola, you have this one.
Well, this is not a conundrum, but it's just a bit complex as well. There's a brewing exchange of words between the Accord Party-led government in Osun State and the former APC, government, former, if you like, ruling party, now opposition in Osun State, over what appears to be destruction of campaign materials, bullying, and intimidation. What exactly is playing out in Osun against the next election, which is coming up very soon, I believe in a few months from now? Let's have joining us to give us insights the Commissioner for Information in Osun State, Mr. Kolapo Alimi, who joins us virtually. Mr. Alimi, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Good morning, our viewers at home.
Well, we've heard you speak in recent times and, talk about the destruction of the campaign materials for Governor Ademola Adeleke, who is contesting the next election under the platform of the Accord Party. But the campaign director for the APC candidate, I believe Mr. Murideen Oyedele, is also speaking, and he says nothing could be further from the truth. And I'm quoting his words now. He's been speaking with the press as well. He says, if anything, it is the campaign billboards and promotional materials of our governorship candidate, Mr. Muniruddin Oyebamiji, yes, Oyebamiji is his name, that have suffered relentless destruction at the hands of political thugs, visibly linked to the Osun State government and its sanguinary Accord Party. Does the government house sponsor political thugs?
Well, thank you. You can see for yourself that that statement is highly ridiculous. I don't know how something that everybody can see will now become a subject of a controversy. If you move around Osogbo, you go to Ife, you go to Ikiriasis, you will see the billboard of the APC candidates, Mr. Oyebamiji, are fully erected there. Most of them actually were erected illegally without the approval of Osun State signage, but just to avoid trouble, they are being allowed to be there. And if you now move around, if you look at the picture you are showing, you will see the billboard of the governor disrupted, even the giant one that should not ordinarily be easy to be destroyed. They were all destroyed. And about 2 days ago, there is a roundabout in front of the state secretariat where the cenotaphs of the former governors in the state, those that have served the state in the past, both the military and the civilians, where they are honored. The hoodlums, the APC hoodlums came in the mid of night and they made attempts to destroy that roundabout. The security agents guarding the state secretariat accosted them and they opened fire. They opened fire on the security. They destroyed just one of Anthony Dufia, one of the past military administrators in the state, and they ran away. They opened fire. They said they came with so many vehicles and there were so many and they were fully armed. So how on earth to now say it is APC billboard that is doing this? So look at it. Virtually all. They are just using all tactics just to make sure they scare the people away. If you look at it, about 5 days ago or 6 days ago, one of our members in the Ikire, Irewole local government, the hometown of Mr. Bola Yebamiji, was murdered in cold blood. And that person happened to be our party agent in the unit of Alhaji Yebamiji. So when you look at all these things, their tactics is that they want to create political tension so as to scare people away. And we can only appeal to the police to do their job very well. The police and other security agents, please, can they do your job? Nigeria is not a banana republic. And because of their past solid performance, they are looking for all means possible propaganda, this and that, to make sure that they cajole the people. But all their propaganda fails. So they want to resort to violence. So what you say they are spokesperson is really ridiculous, and it's only buttressed the fact that it is very clear that they are the one behind all this destruction.
Those are weighty allegations, Mr. Alimi. You say they came in big vehicles and then they opened fire. So that means that they were bearing arms, and that would be bearing arms illegally. But what evidence do you have that this hoodlums, sophisticated hoodlums from your description, what evidence do you have that they are linked with the APC?
That was what I stated there. That was the account given by the security, the divisional police officer around that area. That's from the police. You understand it? The police engaged them. The security, there is a division of police attached to the state secretariat. They engaged them and they came up with this report. So you can verify from the police whether what you are saying is true or not. That's from the police. You understand it? In other areas they have 3 days. Who will dare to confront people with arms? Without arms, there was no way they could have done the extent of that damage. You understand it? People will have confronted them. Even in Osogbo, in the city, even in the middle of night, there are some places, some guards, some roundabout that you see have a handful of people. You will not be able to go there. Look at the one you are showing now. Look at the height. Look at the height of this billboard. It's something that is so low that anybody can just destroy. It required a very coordinated attacking system, and they are still continuing. Even up to yesterday night, up to today, I still had it in my area. All the billboards are erected. They have been destroyed overnight, and we have let them know that it is not the billboard that we fought. So it's just not mere speculation or mere allegation. That's the one I stated about them carrying arms and all these things. The allegation is from the police, but what the police has not actually established is that they are saying they cannot really say it is APC, but that those that are carrying out this act of attack and destructions, they are carrying arms. That's the point emanated from the police.
Honorable Commissioner, let's talk about what the bone of contention really is besides this. It's about leadership, it's about performance, it's about the next election. It's about whether or not Governor Adeleke has actually performed well to deserve a second term in office. We know the situation that brought him in. We know the fight over local government council. Sometimes you're not even sure who is in charge. Osun State is the only state right now, I think, in Nigeria that has 2 councils, leadership, APC and PDP. In fact, these 3 years or since 2023, we've been seeing a lot of duplication from 2 governors to 2 councils to 2 emirs to 2 House of Assembly, all sorts of 2s. But I read somewhere where the APC is accusing the governor, the leadership of Governor Adeleke, of focusing more on publicity and ceremony than structural reforms. When they say that, what do you think they mean?
They are frustrated. Just first and foremost, let me take it from the issue of corruption. The primary reform
Mr. Alimi. Can you hear us, Mr. Alimi? Oh dear. Apparently, network connection. We've been having a lot of network issues. Okay, Mr. Alimi, if you can hear me, for a moment we didn't hear you because of the network. Yes, it's okay, but we're saying we didn't hear you.
Yes. What I'm saying. Yes, what I'm saying is that it's just because they are frustrated. You know, when I take it, I say let me take it from the constitutional perspective. We say primary functions of any government is security and welfare. So let us take the issue of welfare. On the issue of welfare in Osun State, have you ever heard that the workers in this state ever gone on strike? When it was the time for the minimum wage, we adopted 75,500 minimum wage as against the 70,000 adopted by the federal government. And when you are talking of the table, the NLC headquarters adjudged us as that our table able to be the third best in the whole country, whereas we are on the number 31 on the allocation revenue collection. So the welfare of workers, we inherited half salaries conundrum, and we are solving them. The pensioners, they are okay with us. So all these things, please kindly fact check with union leaders in the state, and you see. And so when you talk on terms of security, Osun State today is one of the safest country in the safest state in the country, just because we recruited people into our and they were given adequate equipment, and we make sure that we give the police and other security agency, we give them logistics to operate, and we have to thank them for what they are doing. Until this recently, you don't hear anything bad about Osun State. So that is for that one about the issue of security. Now, coming back to the issue of infrastructure, let's take the issue of education. Come to Osun State. From the rehabilitation and construction of classrooms to the provision of instructional materials, then to welfare of teachers, promotions, trainings. Just go and partake it from the NUT so that they will tell you whether they have actually had it better. And so when you move from the primary and secondary school, and recently we have recruited 1,241 teachers, which they have resumed. And so when you move from that one to the issue of okay, let me, before I leave the secondary school, and we are so lucky, God is rewarding our effort. Today, as I'm talking to you, as per the ranking of NECO in Nigeria throughout, also happen to be number 7. We moved from number 33 to number 7 in 2024. We maintain the same thing in 2025, and we happen to be the number 1 in Southwest. When I say we happen to be the number 1 in Southwest, that means we are far, we are far and above state like Lagos, state like Ogun, state like Ondo, who are getting more resources, who have more resources than we have. You can fact check this one from the NECO website. You will see it, and you can equally Google it. When you Google NECO 2025 result / state by state performances, it will bring it out. That is for that one. Now, coming back, going to the higher institutions level, they created, they established the Osun State Electoral University when they were leaving. A week to the exit of Alabido in the Etala, thinking that it was going to be a booby trap for us. But the governor used his acumen. University of Ilesha, as it is today, has got accredited, including law, courses, accredited courses, including law and MBBS. If I may comment, about 90 courses, yes.
If I may comment, so all of these things you've reeled out, which we're checking the numbers to confirm whether or not you're speaking the facts. Again, let's talk about the politics. Let's talk about the politics therein. Let's talk about the politics. If there's this Osun State, for instance, the state where I know that the APC is interested in, given what has played out. You have the National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Bashiru, who is a member, who is from that state. So you can see the interest in that state is quite high, given the back and forth over local government control and the issues around whether monies are released to the APC-led local government chairman or not. That issue, all the issues around court, and then what played out between the president's wife and the governor then, clearly suggests that, look, this election is going to be a very tough one. Do you see the governor pulling through with the quote-unquote federal might that may come on Osun State? Because this is an off-cycle election where energies are not distributed. All of the energy will be right there in the state.
We are very confident, when you are bonded with the people. I started rolling out our achievement. Just go to everywhere. Come to Subu, go to Ede, go to Ife, go to Igbo, go to Elisha. You will see visibly infrastructure in Earth. Let me quickly give you another study you can check. In Earth, in 2024, we happen to be the #1 on primary healthcare challenge. We won. We are #1 in the Southwest, and we were given an award of $500,000. That challenge is usually being organized by the Nigeria Governors Forum, Dangote Foundations, the Gates Foundations, and National Primary Healthcare Development Board. You can fact check it. And we happen to be the #1. Lagos was #2 in 2024, and it was #3 in 2025. When another one was conducted, we maintain it. We still won another $500,000. We happen to be the #1 in the Southwest. Lagos came third, Ogun became second, and Ogun collected $400,000. So you can fact check this one. Just Google it and just type primary healthcare / state-by-state performances. It will bring it out. So people can see these are national indicators which show that we have good governance in this state. So as far what you are talking about as for federal might, we are confident. We are very confident that our president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is a Democrat. He will not suppress the people's wish. The people in this state, they are bonded with us, and yes.
Mr.
Pardon me.
Just as you are singing the praise of your own administration, the APC is not satisfied, with what's playing out in the Adeleke government. And, we've heard reports of, an annual payroll fraud amounting to about 13.1 billion naira or thereabout, with ghost workers allegedly in your government, non-existent pension workers in your government. There are other allegations, that the governor, is often not in the state, junketing around the globe and all of that. So there are also other, aspects of criticisms against your government. How do you plead, against the scrutiny of the Adeleke government?
You don't run those as a business. Look at it. How can people continue to last on Salitibot? Salitibot, we, even in our own wisdom, wanted to collect $1 billion from the state as our pay for the job. We commissioned her to audit our payroll, and we discovered that there were errors in those reports. We asked her to come for reconciliation. She didn't come. We corrected the error, and we discovered that she's entitled to less than 50 million naira.
Oh dear. But Mr. Alimi, we hope you would return to conclude your thoughts on that. But if disagreements had arisen over the service provided by TBOT to your government, would you be willing to subject, your books, your financial books, to an independent audit, such that we can get an alternative opinion on these allegations of payroll fraud?
We are the one, if you monitor the news very well, we are the one who sent a petition to the FCC and STPC. Because at the being the fraud was discovered, it will be, we are allowed to go tell her that to answer the query. But we didn't discover the little amount of is safe for us. She is only entitled to the 30% of the amount for us. That's why she's claiming huge amount of and Adeleke is not the time that we do all this, we play ball, that we pay money to you come back. Those, Adeleke dynasty is a very huge family. They are well to do. So that's why we are hearing all this. But because if we are to be APC, they will have paid the woman, and then they will correct all the something, and then nobody will hear anything. The woman is not an activist. She's crying out because she wanted to get huge amount of money from the governor. The governor says no. We have actually petitioned CPC and EFCC. Let them come and check whether you have a payroll fraud. So that's one. the people of Osun, they are well-served. They know that the APC will always last on front. They are most of them that you are seeing. We have petition against them with the EFCC. You can only call on the EFCC, including the minister of Marine and Blue Economy. There is a petition since 2025, beginning of 2025, up to this moment. EFCC is not looking their side. There is a petition against Bolo Yebamiji himself because he was the commissioner of finance. EFCC is not looking at that direction. All their chairmen. You made mention of one thing now about the local government in Brooklyn. They created this in Brooklyn. And despite all the part of the cases, despite all the Supreme, the position of
right.
they are still holding on. Wait, they are still holding on to the local government fund up to this moment. They are sharing the local government allocation. And just take note of one thing. From the local government allocation, they are supposed to be paid.
All right, we're totally out of time. Yes. Yeah, we're totally out of time, Mr. Alimi.
Mr. Alimi, we will have to have you back, or in the alternative, this is a direct invitation to the campaign spokesperson of the APC Governorship Campaign Council, Mr. Olajem Bessi, to come also provide, the party's position to some of these allegations that you have presented. We must bring this to a close now. Pardon me, Mr. Alimi. Yeah, or Mr. Mowaye, any spokesperson of the APC. Mr. Kolakwo Alimi is a commissioner for information in Osun State. Thank you for coming to bring insight into what exactly is playing out on the governorship campaigns in Osun State. We'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll bring in the next leg of our conversation. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Let's talk about electoral management or election management and the electoral acts and all the, permit my words, political shenanigans that is going on and what the law says, as well as what morality expects. Samson Itodo is the Executive Director of Yaga Africa, joining us virtually. Mr. Itodo, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
So, provide a bit of clarity to what people are seeing and getting confused. As I was on my way here, and I was driving, I listened to the radio, a lot of people complaining. I think they were mentioning Ineson Wike, a couple of other politicians. They were saying, how can people be let me use the normal word, double dating. Being in this party and working for the other party. We've also seen situations where people we know are members of, say, the PDP. We had a bought from in the APC to be nominated as candidates of that particular party for election. So there's a lot of maneuvering going on with the politician. So let's establish what is in the law, what is not in the law, and what morality expects. But we can only take laws and legality to court. That is what is justiciable, not morality. That's just a value expectation. So talk to us about issues around membership of political parties, nomination of candidates by political parties, and all of that package that confuses people.
Well, thank you very much, Geoffrey, and good morning to you, Bukola. I think that let's make this clear, that it is unacceptable for one individual to be a member of two political parties. And a member of a party is one who has acquired membership through registration at a designated ward and has a membership card, and that individual pays, the prescribed membership dues and contributes to the development of that particular political party. And the end product of that is that that person's name is entered into the register of that particular political party. Now, when you have obtained membership of a political party exists to aggregate social interests, but also contest for political power. And these parties are quite different in their ideology, in their identity, and in their philosophy. Therefore, it is just immoral for one individual to belong to two major to two political parties. Now, membership, can be legal, but individuals can also be members of political parties, but they may support, because they have a right to do so, to support any other political association as they wish. But when it comes to the issue related to what the law says, the law is clear that when it comes to the nomination of candidates, that a candidate cannot be presented by two political parties. And a party cannot also nominate one candidate for two offices. That's the provision, of the law. Few weeks ago, particularly in March, the House of Reps passed an amendment to Section 77 of the Act that criminalizes dual membership, of a political party. The reason why that particular proposal was made was to make clear prescriptions within our laws to condemn and sanction dual membership of political parties. So the House of Reps passed that bill, but the Senate is yet to pass that bill. Therefore, as it stands within our electoral law, dual membership of political parties is not expressly condemned and it's not expressly sanctioned. But you can, look at this, from a different perspective. And some people have argued that you can infer, from INEC's guidelines and from the laws that you cannot be a member of a particular political party, because the question is, should our laws always make these clear prescriptions? In other times, the prevailing political culture does not tolerate, these kinds of behavior where you have individuals either supporting or being members of a political party, whether directly or indirectly. But that's the position of the law. And I think that whether the law makes those clear prescriptions, it is condemnable and it's unacceptable for one individual to be a member of two political parties.
There's something I would like you to speak to quickly before Bukola comes in. And that is what may likely happen with the APC, because the issue of consensus, which I would like you to speak to later on, I know you've written about it as well, what people are considering to be consensus. There's the English consensus, there's a legal consensus, and then there's a power block kind of consensus. It's a mixed bag of everything. But if you look at Section 77 of the Electoral Act, subsection 5, the one that was passed by all, it says only members whose names are contained in the register, that's the register that was submitted based on Section 774, the 21 days now, only members whose names are contained in the register shall be eligible to vote and be voted for in party primaries, congresses, and convention. As by today, APC is going to release the names of the people that are successful in their screening for all of the positions that people are vying for. We also know that as of Sunday or so, which was the 10th, that would have been the last day for any party to have submitted their digital and physical copies of their register. Given this provision and what we are hearing in some corners that some persons may be defected, doesn't this provision stop anybody that at this point, if you were not in any political party, it's too late?
First, the law is clear that submission of party register, right, shall be effected 21 days to the date of a primary. And therefore, parties should have, submitted their register of members. And once you have submitted your register of members within the time frame, only those whose names are contained in that register can either vote and be voted for. Now, if you have defections, if those defections happen after a register has been submitted and the timeline has elapsed, that particular defection, to the extent of its existence, I would say is an effort in futility, because it would not be reflected in the register that has been submitted, to INEC based on the timelines. And parties cannot submit, registers after timeline has elapsed. Because when you do so, it just becomes a mere academic exercise and would not enjoy or would not be recognized by the law. And so parties really need to understand the implications of submitting registers out of time. INEC will not even accept it based on the provisions of the law. So for those who are defecting after the fact, after parties have submitted their register of their members, I don't know what magic they are going to do, but parties need to be very careful because the law is very clear. The provisions are clear. Once the timeline has elapsed, any register submitted to INEC will not be accepted.
Oh, wow, quite a lot to chew on there. But there's more where the Electoral Act is concerned. And this is a continuing conversation from yesterday on gray areas around the Electoral Act. And this has particularly been brought to our notice by former INEC National Commissioner, sections 137 and 138, which he describes as dangerous inclusions into the Electoral Act that may impact negatively on the election. As a matter of fact, he describes them as, components that make it easy to rig the election ab initio. 137, subsection 3 says, where the petitioner complains of the conduct of an electoral officer, a presiding or returning officer, it shall not be necessary to join such officers or persons, notwithstanding the nature of the complaint, and the commission shall in the instance be made a respondent. That's 137 subsection 3. But 138 is perhaps the bigger one, and that talks about an act or omission which may be contrary to an instruction or directive of the commission or of an officer appointed for the purpose of the election, but which is not contrary to the provision of this act, shall not of itself be a ground for questioning the election. Mr. Etodo, I'm glad that you are a lawyer. First of all, my question would be, how were these provisions included in the Electoral Act? Because there were consultations ahead of the 2026 amendment. And should litigations arise around elections, doesn't this preclude or exclude INEC officials from responsibility and make it easy to rig the election from the beginning?
Well, first, this particular provision was contained in the 2022 Act. And we have constantly held the view that you cannot make laws that prevent or protect misdemeanor committed, by election officials. Now, the bigger question is, why should INEC officials who are involved in the conduct of elections be shielded or protected, especially in cases where, they have run foul of the law? That particular provision, we have held the view consistently that it has no basis, there is no rationale, there is no justification whatsoever for that particular provision. And it's our considered opinion that that particular provision gives, some level of alibi or what you call excuse for rogue election officials to commit all forms of atrocities because they would escape liability at the end of the day. Because you say that if they are involved in an act that is, and if you look at what the provision says, that when an act or omission, may be contrary to an instruction or directive, it is not a basis, for questioning that election. Why? When the officials is the same law that makes the presiding officer the authority in a polling unit, that responsibility, that task comes with some measure of responsibility. And where there is responsibility, there must be accountability. And so we have to be very conscious of these particular provisions. And that's why, yes, it's already part of the law, But INEC, in framing its guidelines and regulations, needs to make express provisions that clearly states and reinforces that where a presiding officers engage in acts or decisions that negates the regulations, that also negates the Electoral Act, that they will be held to account. It's something that needs to be on the front burner of public discourse. And so it's really problematic. But that's not the only problematic provision in this bill, in this act. If you look at section 65 that talks about, what are the conditions for INEC to activate its power of review. The law says that where elections have been declared, where results have been declared under duress, where results have been declared contrary to the procedure for collation of results, that INEC has 7 days to review the results. Now, what the law, this particular act now says, which is a new insertion, that is draconian and unacceptable, is that INEC can only activate that power where the report comes from its officials. The problem with that particular provision in the act is that the act is saying in the event that it's a REC, a resident electoral commissioner, or INEC official that is responsible for rigging elections, that it's that same official that must submit a report to INEC before INEC activates its power of review. I think that we are just making a mockery of the entire accountability mechanism introduced in the Act. We know for sure that there is no way a compromised INEC official will file a report to report themselves that they have rigged elections. It just wouldn't happen. This is why we were strongly opposed to that particular provision, and Nigerians need to keep an eye on what happens, because at the end of the day, if the reports must only come from INEC officials, then what's the basis of having accredited party agents? What's the basis of having accredited observers? What's the basis of even having accredited media officials? It's all to provide oversight. But if all of these manipulations happen, and you say you can only activate your power only when you receive reports from your INEC officials, I think that this is the height of legislative I would say responsibility.
Mr. Sodo, the INEC boss, the current INEC boss, is a professor of law, as a matter of fact, with expertise in evidence, the Evidence Act. Amid all of these concerns and conversations, why is it silence that we're getting, or a total lack of scrutiny from the leadership of INEC over these concerns around, legislative rascality, if you like?
Well, the credentials of the INEC chairman are not in that, but INEC does not make, the law. And I can give you a bit of history on that particular provision. Now, after the Edo elections, that civil society, election observers, and even media organizations, condemned that because it failed to meet the integrity test. We called on INEC to issue specific regulations that guides, this whole process of review. It was after the Edo elections that INEC issued supplementary guidelines. And in that supplementary guidelines, INEC highlighted that reports can only come, from 3 officials: the resident electoral commissioner, the returning officer, and the national commissioner. We at Yiga Africa issued a statement rejecting that particular supplementary guidelines. Unfortunately, that guidelines was now imported into the 2026 Electoral Act, particularly this provision, because this provision, now says that only reports from INEC officials. Now, the current INEC chairman was not INEC chairman when the act, when this provision was inserted and was considered. And so what we would expect that in the regulations that INEC is working on, we would like to see INEC make further regulations, to expand the scope of reports that it can receive from accredited observers, from party agents, when they raise objections. Because when you say results are declared under duress, and we know the character of some of our political class, Look at the way they're preparing for the next elections, as though we're preparing for war. It's all a do or die affair. And this is why they continue to compromise INEC officials. I can say this, and you know this for sure, that a compromised INEC official will never file a report to the commission. Therefore, mindful of this, what we expect is that the current INEC will look within its own powers to say, in drafting our regulations, we can consider reports, credible reports from our accredited observers, from party agents, especially when there's prima facie evidence that results were declared under duress or results have been mutilated. In today's election management ecosystem, you have to look at a diverse ways of gathering evidence. And when there is sufficient, for instance, if Channels is on the field and you're reporting real time what happens on the field on election day, and you capture a situation where there has been manipulation, will INEC just sit back and wait until the official? What if the official does not file a report? INEC can rely on credible reports from other sources to make this administrative review. In any case, it's an administrative review. These are kinds of, innovations we would like to see that would inspire trust and confidence, within this electoral commission and the electoral process, that there is commitment expressed through, fashioning out the regulations and guidelines that deepens transparency, that empowers citizens to share reports and experiences from their from their polling units, and then INEC takes decisions based on that. But to foreclose other sources of reports on duress or manipulation and just limit it to INEC officials, I think it does not in any way, and it will not in any way, confer any form of legitimacy or integrity to the process.
There's a lot to chew on. I was going to look at, there's a provision I'm trying to catch it. Is it 58 or so that I remember the police had complained about? If you can remember, one of the public hearing, the police had complained that, I think there should be section 58 of 2022 or so, where if somebody behaves in a disorderly manner or unruly manner, or whatever that description is the polling unit officer or the polling officer can't order that person to leave. But when the person restrains, they call the police. The question is, what if it is the INEC official itself that is acting out of order? What then does the police do?
Well, the general rule is that the presiding officer is the highest authority in a polling unit. And the reason is, when the conduct of elections, it's an independent electoral commission. Therefore, it has the powers to administer elections. And so the presiding officer has the authority of the INEC chairman and is protected by law to govern a particular polling unit. Where the presiding officer engages in acts that undermine the integrity of the electoral process, that's why you have party agents. That's why you have election observers. That's how you have INEC monitors. Where they are not available, the police, would have to intervene, especially. And we have to be careful, because we don't want a situation where the security agencies continue to interfere with the management of elections. And we've seen that actually happen in some instances. And we have to be very careful about the kinds of powers that are given to security agencies to interfere, with the election process. But the question is, when it is clear that there is imminent danger and there is threat to the life of the presiding officer, the INEC officials, and the voters, the reason why the security agencies are there is to ensure protection. So they have a responsibility to ensure safety of all those who are in the polling units. But they do not have, powers to interfere with the electoral process, because in any case, they are not trained like INEC officials. They don't have the expertise of the presiding officer. So we have to be careful about the extent to which the police or security agencies can interfere with the conduct of elections. It's just a balancing act. But if the presiding officer is involved in corrupt practices, you have party agents who can report, you have election observers, and I think the last responder should be a security agent, because we've seen instances And there are, credible reports about some level of interference, whether it's with management of elections at a polling unit or is even interference with the collation process, which has been part of our electoral process, for several decades.
Interesting perspective. We're hoping that this election is going to be better than the other. What do you? Let me just, before we let you go, I know that there was a document released. I've forgotten the title of that document, but we discussed it extensively about projection of participation. We are still not doing well in terms of our voter turnouts, below 30%, maybe in the last election, and maybe around 30% generally. Do you hope for a better turnout this time?
I am very hopeful, but quite frankly, I think that I am not confident that there will be higher turnouts in the 2027 elections. The only way we would see turnouts in the 2027 elections is if all the stakeholders in the electoral governance architecture, if INEC, if the security agencies are able to engage in actions that inspire trust and confidence in the electoral process, if the political parties in these primaries uphold the principles of transparency, this whole candidate imposition that we see masquerading as consensus will further discourage people from coming up, because people will not be given the choices that will inspire them, to come out to cast their vote. The issue about security is also one biggest concern. So there are a plethora of issues. But my call, to voters is, regardless of what you see happen in the polity today, sitting back and not showing up in the next election is the greatest disservice. The greatest disservice to our nation, and it will not solve the problem. Staying back will not solve the problem. In any case, the politicians don't want you to come out to vote, because the lesser the voters, the easier it is to manipulate electoral outcomes. But when you show up in your large numbers protecting your mandate at your polling station, we make it difficult for election riggers to have their way on the day of elections. But sitting back and not showing up to vote will only extend and continue to help, irresponsible leaders stay in office.
Samson Itodo, thank you so much for coming through. We appreciate it. Thank you. He's the Executive Director
Thank you.
of Yaga Africa. Thank you, sir. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll switch gears to something around the community that has not been with light, we understand, for about 10 years in Delta State. So if you're in Delta State, for instance, and you are interested in the development of that state, this is a good one for you to be part of, because we're going to be asking questions, and if you have a contrary position to what the claims are, we'd like to have it as well. 10 years without electricity, we'll find out what exactly is going on in that part of Delta State. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And so we've been talking politics for much of the week, and sometimes we wonder if governance is also taking the right measure of attention and action that it rightly deserves. Well, one of the consequences is what we're about to dive into now, and it's about the lack of power in an area in Delta State, Isoko, to be precise, with reports indicating that some communities in Isoko have been without power for about 10 years. Yes, let me say that again. For full measure, they have been without power for 10 years, a decade. So what exactly is happening? Which distribution company is superintending over the provision of power in that area? What power stations are they connected to? Let's have joining us right here. Let's welcome right here in our Lagos studio, Mr. Ubaro. He's an author and the convener of Isoko Needs Light. Mr. Ubara, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so let's begin by asking just how many communities in Isoko have been without power for 10 years, and which are the ones that, perhaps have light, but do not have the right measure of supply?
Well, and to be very honest, it's not even some community that doesn't have light in Isoko. As a matter of fact, it is the entire Isoko that is in darkness. So it's not as if we have some community having electricity and some not having. The whole of Isoko, from Isoko South and Isoko North, is in total darkness.
But there are reports that communities like Elu, Ovrode, Arade, Ofagbe have experienced prolonged blackouts, but not necessarily total power outage for 10 years.
Yes.
So those have some measure of power, but inadequate power.
Yes.
Okay, so not the entire Isoko.
The point is, the community you just mentioned, like there are communities like Araya, or Fagbe, Elu that you mentioned, they have not even seen electricity for more than 20 years. There are some that have not even seen electricity for more than 30 years in Isoko land. But the major capital, the headquarters of Isoko South, which is Ole, and Isoko North, which is Ozoro, those ones sometimes, that was like some years back, the light will just come for like 20 minutes, they just flash the light. I don't know what that means. They will just flash the light. We have light too, but we don't want to give to you, because that's the meaning I read to it.
Okay, so what have been the efforts of community leaders in Isoko North and South to engage with the government, maybe at the state level, or the relevant power distribution companies, to solve this problem? Is there a transformer in these communities that have been provided to provide power? Or maybe the transformers have not been working?
Well, in terms of our leaders intervening in this situation, for me, I would say that if they are doing anything for us, I don't think they are doing anything. Because for young people like us to take it upon ourselves to begin to advocate for electricity, it shows that they are not doing anything. Because when we started this advocacy, because one of the things that really spurred me to this advocacy is the fact that I'm into student mentorship, because I float an organization called Read and Lead, where we are encouraging reading culture. So one of the events that really saddened me the most was when I went to visit one of my students who called me for mentorship. And when I got there, in this 21st century, a student is reading with candle. A student is reading with candle. And I asked him, why is this so? He said it's so because their parents cannot afford fuel. Fuel is very, very expensive. So that is what makes us, we young people, to take this responsibility at what is going on. So I don't think our leaders are doing anything about it. Because I was so surprised. When I went to BIDEC, which is in charge, the question I asked them is that, how many of our leaders have visited? They didn't tell me that any of our leaders visited. So we have to find out what is the problem. They told us the problems. What is the solution? They also told us the solution. So I make bold to say here that our leaders are doing nothing about it. But rather, what they are doing is that they are mounting solars in their homes. They are mounting solars in their offices. They have big generators to run.
Okay.
And then, how our mothers, our fathers, who are into farming and the ones that are into petty businesses, how can they afford solar? So the message right now is that we will not give you electricity, go and buy solar. That is what our leaders are practically saying.
What did BEDC identify as the problem?
Fine. From the research we gathered, I and my team, BED told us that, as a matter of fact, right now, the entire Isoko is not in their priority list. So what are supposed to come to Isoko, that are giving it to big companies that can pay them? But then I can't even blame them, because they're in for business. And it's also showed the irresponsibility of our leaders. Because if they were responsible, they would have found out why they are sharing our electricity to other places. Right? Now, they also told us the solution. They said the only way Isoko can have electricity is a project that is cited in Ozoro, in Isoko North local government, which is 132 kV stroke 33 kV. That once that project is completed, the problem of Isoko is solved 90%. And it will shock you. This same project in Isoko is done in other places. In other places, they have completed theirs. But in Isoko, our own is just left abandoned. So they told us that once this project is completed, this problem of electricity in Isoko will be solved.
So let's talk about, I want to do proper mapping. So we're seeing that video. What is that? Is that a substation?
Yes, substation.
And it's not functional.
It was actually, it's a contract that was awarded 2011. Over 14 years now, right? So, and billions of naira have been spent and the projects are abandoned there. Right?
Okay.
Yes, that is the situation. So, like what we're told at BDEC is that they need to complete that project before Isoko can be lighted, so that those communities I mentioned earlier on that have not had light for 30 minutes, for 30 years, 20 years, everywhere in Isoko can be lighted.
So, Isoko is made up of the ethnic nationality called Isoko people.
Yes.
Occupy how many local government areas in Delta?
We have 2 local governments in Isoko.
Okay.
We have the Isoko South, and the headquarters is Ole, and we have the Isoko North, the headquarters is Ozoro.
I'm putting things on record. So
Yeah.
is it the both Isoko South and North that don't have light?
The whole Isoko South and North is in total darkness.
How many communities are in Isoko South and North? Do you have an idea?
I may not get the exact figures, but there are more than 20-something communities.
In the entire Isoko nation?
Yes, I do not have the exact
Who are the
figure.
prominent people from Isoko that, in Nigeria for instance, who are the prominent people, Isoko people?
Prominent people in Isoko, I don't think I will mention prominent Isoko people, but rather I should talk about our leaders. Because
No, I'm going to somewhere with that. So let's talk about who is the local government chairman of Isoko North and Isoko South?
okay, yes, the local government chairman of Isoko.
Please I know where I'm going to my question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The local government chairman of Isoko South is Honorable Wari Ovuke. Yes. And then the one of Isoko North is Honorable Ogoruba. Because, yes, Ogoruba, that's the name.
So Isoko North and South is under which federal constituency?
Isoko South and...
Do you know you have federal constituencies?
Yes.
The reason why I'm probing all of this, I wanted to go from local government chairman to member of the House of Assembly, to the House of Representatives,
Yeah.
To the Senate.
Isoko should be Delta Central, right?
Yes, Delta...
Is it
No,
Delta?
Delta South. Delta South.
Who is
Isoko is Delta South.
Who is the senator representing that region?
Yes,
I know Dafinoni represents senator in Central.
yes.
And
Is this Senator
Nedu
Joel
Fowa.
For Isoko is Honorable Joel Onowapo.
Senator?
The senator representing
Joel
Isoko.
Onowapo.
Joel Onowapo.
No, it can't be Isoko. I mean,
I'm talking of
South.
Delta South.
Yes.
So, you know where I'm going to with all of this? If you notice, I have not mentioned the governor yet.
Yeah.
And it's very deliberate.
Yeah.
Because, of course, everything falls on the governor's table. But I'm saying there's a long list of leadership. Chairman, I can even go further down, councillors, chairman, House of Assembly, House of Representatives, and the gentleman you call Senator what?
Joel Onowapo.
All of them are going to be coming to you guys to vote for them.
Yes.
In the next election.
Yes.
And so you know how to pay them back if you don't have light. So that's why I'm saying call all these names so that they will hear it on national television. Now let's go to the governor. Has this gotten to the governor's table? And what is the response from government?
I want to believe that this has gotten to the governor's table, because for the past 1 month now, the agitation has been in Isoko. Our mothers are saying that give us light or we will not vote for you. Our fathers are saying give us light. Even the students are saying that please, we need light to study. There are some of them that are preparing for JAM and WAEC, and because of lack of electricity, their performances has been very, very abysmal. Okay? So I believe by now the governor must have heard this whole agitation.
So I don't know whether they have a commissioner for power. Some states have. So this an open invitation. Commissioner for what? Is this Charles? Mr. Charles? I think that's the commissioner for information.
Yes,
right?
that's Charles for information.
But I wanted to see whether there is a commissioner for energy and natural resources, because different states have their own.
Of course, there is a commissioner for power in Delta State.
Well, I'd like to, pardon me, Jeffrey.
No, we're trying to call the attention of government to this.
It's not sitting well with me how a distribution company can in your inquiry say that Isoko is not in their priority for the provision of power. It's your right. It's your right constitutionally to have power supply in Isoko, just like every other part of the country is connected to the national grid. So did you counter that position that they're supplying power first of all to other areas that can pay them? I don't understand it.
Like I said, it's as a result of the irresponsibility of our leaders. For BDEC to tell us that we are not in our priority list, it speaks volume about our leaders. And let me tell you, Isoko is not just a national, ethnic nationality. We are talking of a nationality that has over 100 oil wells. We are talking of a nationality that has 8 flow stations. We are talking of a nationality that has
It's
critical...
an oil-producing local
Yes,
government.
it's not a local government, it's an entire ethnic nation.
I'm just saying by I know the Isoko North and South.
Yes.
Isoko people are an ethnic nationality. I know.
Yes.
I understand that. I'm saying within Isoko North and South, there are oil installations.
Yes.
And you don't have lights.
And we don't have lights.
Interesting.
Over 100 oil wells, 8 flow stations. I can tell you, the oil that comes from Isoko daily, we are producing 395,000 barrels daily. This is what we're giving to Nigeria. And for such a place to be in darkness, it's very, very frustrating. So we are talking of a nationality that has critical infrastructure like OML 30, OML 26. These are
oil block.
Yes, so that contributes a lot to the national treasury. And yet we're in total darkness.
So besides the impact on, students in Isoko who are poorly performing because of the absence of power supply, help us understand what other impact this is having on small businesses in Isoko, on women, businesses, on markets in Isoko, on the usual daily life in Isoko Nation, North and South.
It's very, very pathetic because at the point I went around stores. As I speak to you right now, businesses in Isoko have crumbled. Because one, there is no electricity, and because of the high cost of fuel, they can't even fuel their generator. So, business and electricity, they run together. So businesses in Isoko are crumbling, right? And there are a lot of people that are living in Isoko in drove, going to other places where we have electricity. And let me say this. Isoko is the only ethnic nationality that is in darkness in the whole of all the major ethnicity in Delta State. We have the Ijos, we have the Shokiri, we have the Urubos. All of them, they have lights. But Isoko doesn't have lights. And look at the information I've given in terms of oil production. Right. That's why it's very, very sad.
All right, we're going to call your leaders out. I was asking for any prominent person, any very popular leader from Isoko Nation, but maybe I'll Google that and get back. So let's go through that list again, because we're telling them now they are not living up to their responsibility based on. So the chairman of Isoko North is what? What's his name, sir?
Honorable Ogurugba.
His South is what?
Honorable Henry Ovoke.
Do you know the federal constituency?
House of Reps members.
House of Rep, Honorable Ajirogene Ukodiko, representing us at the federal level.
Senator?
Senator Honorable Jewel Onoabo.
And of course, we know the governor. So,
and of course, we have House of Assembly members.
Yes, I forgot that line.
We have Honorable Bino Owede for Constituency 1. And then we have Honorable Ferguson Owon for Constituency 2. And of course, in the Isoko North Axis, we have Honorable Bernard Odio. These are members representing us. It's not as if we don't have leaders.
Have you been opportune to make a presentation on this concern at the State Assembly level?
We have not. But you know what,
I think you should lead a protest there.
We will get there. We will get there.
That's the right
we will get there. Because if we are not attended to, the plan is to shut down the whole of Isoko.
I think it's you don't need to say much, because it's clear injustice not to have light if you have all this installation. So this is a clear message to the Delta State government. We have to put it on their feet. So Governor Sheriff Oborowore, I don't know who is your commissioner in charge of power. I will get to find it out. You will need to come and answer some questions. Either the governor's spokesperson or the governor himself or the leadership. The Isoko people are complaining 10 years without lights. I don't think it's fair to them. With installations of oil facilities that takes care of our nation, our cash cow. So that's the much we can say. So we're expecting a response from the Delta State government as far as this issue of light in Isoko Nation is concerned. Bukola?
Yes, indeed, and this is an invitation also to those relevant, government officials in Isoko to perhaps come and provide a perspective if indeed, they have done something about it, and all of this has just been the position of the Isoko needs light movement. So if there's a counter position, we'll be only too willing to, cover that position as well on national television. However, what perhaps is indisputable right now is the fact that those in Isoko, residents in Isoko North and South, have been without light, most of them for 10 years. And according to Mr. Obaru, some even more than 10 years. So Mr. Obaru, thank you so much for coming through.
But I just want to say something. There is a solution.
Yeah.
It's not
you have only 30 seconds.
Yes, there is a solution to this problem. The solution is the completion of the 132/33 kV that is sited in Ozoro. Once that project is completed, this whole electricity problem will be solved. So I'm using this opportunity to appeal to the governor of Delta State, Honorable Sheriff Oborowore, that the only thing he can do for Isoko right now is to push for the completion, is to complete that project for us, so that Isoko can have light. Once that is done, we are ready to support him politically.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming through on the program. I hope we've done our bit to bring awareness to your cause. Ms. Obaro, convener Isoko Need Light, as well as an author. Thank you.
And we hope that the next time we'll have this conversation, or we have opportunity to refer to it, we'll be talking about Isoko now being lighted up.
And just before we go, very sad and disturbing news came through and filtered through yesterday, where one of Nollywood's bright futures at 40 has passed on. Alex Ekubo is no more with us. He's passed on after a brief illness. Alex was an actor who was established himself in Nollywood as a rising star and eventually become who he is. He's a known name. At some point, we're not seeing him in circulation. And then sadly yesterday, the news broke that Alex has passed. Our thoughts and our prayers are with his family. We thank him for his contribution to the creative industry and for the life lived to serve the community, Nigeria, with his craft.
A very sad one, and of course Nollywood would remember him, and indeed Nigerians would remember him in movies like Lagos Cougars, We Can't Get Away, In the Cupboard, Dreamwalker, Blazing Heart, The First Lady, Merry Men, Sugar Rush, and just to mention a few. A brilliant young man there, and he will be sorely missed. We offer our condolences to the family of Alex Ekubo. May his soul rest in peace.
But that's it on the program. Thank you for your time and company. Sunrise Daily is up next at the top of the hour at 9. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. We're back again tomorrow. I am Bukola Koga. Bye for now.